our Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. My guest today is Dr. Martha Joseph Watts, and we're talking about her newest book. I would love for you, if you could please, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
My book is The Adventures of Yanni. It is actually a series. The first one is The Adventures of the Yanni, The Voyage West. The second one in the series is The Adventures of the Yanni, The Incredible Beginning. You can find me at Buddin, Buddin, writers at gmail.com or buddinwriters.com.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Now, Dr. Martha, I have to ask you about Yanni just a little bit more. I love what you're doing here, and I want for people to make sure that they understand that you really put thought into writing your book. We are all of one breath. I love that you're doing that. I would like to kind of shift gears just a little bit, because I like to ask questions that not only do I think that our listeners want to know about, but sometimes those listeners are also aspiring authors themselves. And they not only want to pick your brain about your book, but about your process. So the next few questions I have for you are strictly about your process. So my question is, when you're writing, Dr. Martha, do you find that writing exhausts you? Does it energize you? Or is it kind of a little bit of both?
I think it energizes me. And my process, I've heard other authors talk about waking up to write things because it's nagging. And my process is like that. So I would have an idea and it's just nagging. It's like, until I put it down, it doesn't go away. And sometimes I would just write it down because I want the nagging to stop. And then maybe a few weeks later, or maybe a month or two later, I have a nagging again. And I'll go ahead and I'll write it down thinking it's a new idea. But then when I read my journal, I was like, oops, that idea was there before. So a lot of times it's just, yeah. So I have a lot of reoccurrences happening because once I don't complete it, it's like my brain has a way of just bringing it back and say, okay, you didn't do that. And just recently, actually, I'm working on something in the education, which is Dr. Martha Watts, which is how to implement, programs in schools. Mm-hmm. And I started it last year and I put it away. And then this year I felt like, oh my God, I put up paper and I wrote everything else because I'm so excited it's new. But then I started flipping through one of my journals and I'm like, oops, it's already there. I just call it a different something. So the whole, for me, the process is it comes and then it nags until I get rid of it. So if I don't, then it just comes back again another time. And for example, the second book that I wrote it in 8 days. But I wouldn't say that I wrote it in 8 days. I would say that it's been settling in my mind for a whole year. I just never sat to write it down. And so when I travel on the plane, I do a lot of writing on the plane. So on the plane, I would pick up that paper, whatever I have, and I would outline. I would say, okay, chapter 1 will be this. This is going to be the focal point of chapter 1, chapter 2. But it's not something that I am forcing at that time. It's like it's been there, and I'm just making time to put it down. And so I would say that writing for me is beautiful. It just, it comes. When it comes, I cannot ignore it when it comes.
Right. Now, for someone who, again, they're thinking about being a writer, do you think that someone who is choosing to step off and be a writer or to become an author, that they need to feel strongly about whatever it is that they're writing? I guess my question is, there's a difference between you may know something and you have all of the facts, but then there's something that you feel very strongly, very passionately about, but you only have 3 bits of truth before you, but you still feel very strongly about those 3 pieces. Do you think that it's important to have more than just the facts to be passionate about your writing as well?
Not at all. I say to people, write. Write. Revisit it. Revisiting is so important because when you write something and you set it down for a while, you go back to it, you will find that you're getting new ideas. You will get to expand it. When I wrote the Writing to Respond process, which is my educational books, I had 1 book. And I remember getting that word that it was going to be more. And I'm like, it's just 1 book. But now it's like I have 8 resources from that 1 book. I did not have all of those ideas. I have an educational resource for schools where you have teachers who are going on. They leave very often. I mean, teachers leave, So there's something for when you have a new teacher. All of those things came. I never sat and had everything one time. So write those 2 pieces of ideas down. Whatever it is you have, acknowledge it, own it, write it down, and then revisit it. When you revisit, you will get other things to add to it. And I remember one of the biggest hindrances I had before writing, because I tried writing before. I have poems, like maybe a book of poetry that I never published. I have fiction for adults that I never published. And one of the things that held me back was, what will the readers say? What will reviewers say? We think of what people will say and we allow that to hold us back. Well, guess what? I had to tell myself, reviewers need something to review. So I am going to write. So we want to make sure that we do not defeat ourselves before we even begin writing. And that is one of the things, one of the fears or the phobias that people have for not beginning the process. They're worried about what people are going to say, what the reviewers are going to say. Your book is not for everybody. But somebody's going to pick up that book and they're going to get inspired. So go ahead and write, because you might be writing for one person, maybe one person that's not even in your setting. It might be somebody where Amazon sells. Yes. So do not be intimidated. Yes.
I love that. Don't be intimidated. Go on and write. You don't know who that person is that you're writing for. I love that. Now, when do you think you figured out that language had power, be it that it was a spoken word or the written word? Do you recall there being a particular moment, or maybe there was an experience or something that happened that you said, you know what, language is awesome, and boy, does it have power?
I remember when I was a child, we had one little community library. It was a nun. There was that little room, and she had just books. And we were allowed to take a book on Saturdays or on weekdays after school. And one day I woke up actually remembering the smell of those books, because I think that's when I began just understanding the power of words. And I remember once at school we had also the series, Mr. Joe. And I just, right there and then, I just had this fascination with words and the series. And I'm like, somehow, somewhere deep inside, I just felt like I could do that one day. I didn't have it in those exact words, but I was always fascinated by just the idea that I could pick up the next level up and I could continue finding out what Mr. Joe did on his barn. And it was just powerful to just know that you could want something else. And just realizing that words can be so powerful and they can motivate people.
I love it. I love it. Well, you know what, Dr. Martha, our time is over, but let me tell you, I have enjoyed my morning with you today and all that you have shared with us, and I think that our listeners have as well. One last time, if you could, before I let you go, can you remind everyone what is the title of your series, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
You can find Adventures of Yanni on Amazon, and you can also find it on my website, buddingwriters.com. And if you have social media, you can follow me on Budding Writers Dr. Watts on Facebook, Budding Writers Dr. Watts on Instagram, Budding Writers Dr. Watts on YouTube.
Thank you again for being on the show today. And listeners, thank you as well for tuning in and spending some time with me today. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you and your little ones to be their best today. As always, may you continue to have God's grace and mercy and His face to shine upon you. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Bye-bye.